There we go. And we are live. We're back to working on Pillar, which, to recap, is a dynamically typed language that runs at compile time to generate usually code for a statically typed language that we then compile into an actual binary. So, what part of that are we actually working on this stream? Last time, we did a lot of work to get error checking working. Or error reporting working in a lot better way than just having a bunch of try-catch statements everywhere. So if we look at the test like Hello World program here, and let's just do a little bit of a typo there. If I run cargo run test pill here, you see we get an error there where, I mean, it's not on this specifically, but it is saying expected a semicolon. Like, it's not a valid expression. So it's telling us where the error actually is, what line it is, and we have good output for that. I don't know if I actually got to the point where I was showing runtime errors on stream, but we definitely got... No, we got to the point where I was showing grammar errors on stream. We didn't get to the point where we were showing runtime errors on stream. Which... Let's see... That would be like... Oh yeah, it already is. Forgot about this. The fucking chud sun variable that I hate is not found, and then it actually shows me a stack trace. I was pretty excited about that. So it literally shows us each one of the call sites for different things. You'll notice that this object declaration shows up as a call site, and that's because this is actually a function call, and main is one of the argument, like a named argument to the function. And that's how I'm handling object instantiation is literally just a function call, which makes it so you can do a lot of interesting grammar stuff. I might need to go grab more water because this thing is basically empty. And that's fine, that won't come back to bite me at all. Yeah, so what are we working on this time? This time, we're working more on fleshing it out. And the main thing that we don't have fleshed out right now is type checking. So if I go to my standard library here, which is just defined in Rust for now, we haven't gotten to the point where we can actually bootstrap the language yet. Once we do get to the point where we can bootstrap the language, making progress in the language gets significantly easier, but we're not there yet. So looking at all the stuff we have going on here, the main thing you'll see is this args kind of object cannot define variable with array args. I'm just doing to do here is like, it's not well checked. And here's where I'm checking to make sure this reference kind is an identifier and all of that. So the reason that, work with me here, brain. No reasons. What I want to do today is I want to make a common utility for doing all of this that will ideally just be a single function call that takes in a list of types, and then we want to check our arguments for that. And then also, it will be able to check the names of arguments in the case of object arguments, and all of that sort of stuff. Or I guess check the arguments, if it's an args object, check it against a defined, I guess, call signature. So that's most of what I want to do today. That's most of what I want to do today. Sorry, I cannot talk. I want to get to the point where we can check arguments, and then make a utility function where we can throw a function signature into the function arguments, and then it's just good to go. But to do all of that, first, we must invent the concept of a type, which I have not settled on how I want to do the concept of types here. It is 87 degrees in this room right now. Let me see if I can open this window and if it's actually colder outside right now. It's roughly the same temperature, if not 1 or 2 degrees colder outside, so we're just gonna do that. Okay, hopefully that drops from 87, because I don't know if I'd be able to do 90 without my water bottle full. Should probably go fill up. That's fine. Okay, types. So let's go to the docs where I've been kind of messing around with the idea for what I want types to look like. I was thinking that types could be defined as an enum, but I'm really unsure the direction I want to go with this. There's not a lot of languages that do something similar to this. Well, not a lot of languages with enum types that do runtime reflection similar to this, because I want common data structure that defines all types, obviously. And that's the other hard part. Actually, kind of the hardest part is we can't just have definitions for types. We need to have a definition for the definition of types. We need a type. Okay. And I don't think I want to do a straight enum type, because I also want to be able to define members for types. And then when we're calling functions or interfaces of types, I don't want to do something where it has to do like an enum match on this before it can actually call the thing. So I think instead of having type be an enum type, this is going to be our definition for type kind, like that. And then we're going to let type be equal to just a generic object for now, because I don't really... We're not bootstrapped enough for types to be able to define types yet. But I guess kind of, yeah. Anyway, recursive problem I don't want to solve yet. So type, we're going to have kind be type kind, and then that's our enum here. And now we can do a definition of things that every single type we know will have. So interfaces is one that I want to have. I really like the way that Rust does traits. Maybe instead of interfaces, I'll do traits. Maybe. I don't know. Going to any conference this summer? AWE? I was thinking about going to AWE. I've gone to 3 AWEs in the past. This year, though, I'm looking more at open source. Though people I know are going to AWE, so I'm flip-flopping back and forth on if I'm going or not. Actually, how far away is it? When is AWE 2026? July 20th. July 17th to July 19th. Oh wait, no, that's not AWE. Wrong event. Equally GPT was leading me wrong. Okay, so for the actual AWE, be a 15-hour trek. Nice. From here, I think it's roughly a 20-hour drive. I haven't done it, but roommates have. Let's see. So USA is June 15th through 18th. That is literally next week. If I did want to do that. So, I'm probably not going to AWE this year. I would like to. If it was like 3 weeks out, I might do it. But it's a little bit too close right now. I haven't been prepping for it. Okay, and then traits. This will probably just be objective traits. I don't have a good way to define... Yeah, this will just be generic object. I guess... Actually, the way that you would define this is more of a map from... Map from an ident into a trait, like that. Which would be how you define an object like that. But I don't know if there's anything else I define here. But I'm thinking about, okay, for runtime values, do I want to have something specific for runtime values? Or do I want to let emitters define their own runtime types? And then just type kind will be an object type. That's probably what I'll do for now, for the time being. And then as we get closer... As we start needing to more closely define what these things are, that's when we'll come up for actual definitions for it. Is this song really WhiteBatAudio song? Apparently this is a WhiteBatAudio song. Huh. Be gone, view chat butter. This one. I don't want AI watching my content. So this is definitely not good enough for now because we need to actually define what these are. Let's do it real fast. Ident, for all of these, I don't think we'll have a no type. Maybe we need a wildcard type? I don't know. But, okay. We have booleans as a constant. We have integers as constants, or runtime values. We have floats as constants or runtime values. We have identifiers as runtime values. We also have buffers as... We're going to call them compile time values. Not constants, because they're not constant at compile time. So compile time bool int float ident object is something that could be runtime, but it also could just not be. object type. We need a name, optional name. An optional string. Which ideally, this is how I'd like to be able to define these sorts of things, is just with that sort of syntax. Okay. So you have name. What type of objects do we want to do? We want to have an object that is specifically one type of object that only has, like, a rigid object, basically. We want to have a rigid object. We want to have an interface object, so an object that has certain members. Maybe? I'm thinking about it not so much. Maybe I need object kinds. Be ridiculous to go that deep. Feel like. We'll go that deep. We can simplify as it makes sense. So object kind is an enum type. Name, ident, object kind. Then we have variants. Those variants are just going to be, for now, we'll just have struct, which is rigid. Have object of type of kind object, and object is just free form basically. Be value nothing. I guess I should have as a constant like that. Means should I have nothing as a type? A type kind is nothing, I guess. I don't know if name actually makes sense for type. Okay, I just did kind and traits, not name. Object, if you're just no definition, struct, which is this will just be members. How do I want to define members? I wanted this to be an array of an array of object member. Like that, and then object member will just be identifier, an identifier, and then additionally we'll want the type of this member, and then we get into recursive definitions. But that's fine in the case of these objects. What would I have to do? Make it so that I can just find parts of the standard library in line. The problem with how I'm defining standard library right now that I just have to define the entire thing and then create an object that represents it. So I can't create the standard library without the standard library. I need something like a core library. Can't really create that. So I guess I'll just be creating these aside of that. Okay, no, it is holding steady at 87 degrees over here, so I'm gonna take this off. That's good enough for now. Makes me happy because I have my enum type kind as well as my base type object here. But now I just need the utilities to easily work with these. For now, let's just try defining this. So here we have type ident, type. So let's use our object macro instead. VM object. And then this is going to be an enum type. So I'm going to create a placeholder placeholder enum type like that. And then this is going to be based off enum type. The name is going to be ident type. Dang it, to define an ident type like that, we need we need type to RDB defined to be able to define ident type. Technically, I could go in and fill in the variable after the fact, and I think that's what I'm going to do. So name is going to be, how are we going to define ident? What is the constructor for ident? So I'm going to have enum type, ident type here. I guess if I fill in ident type after the fact, how am I defining variance? I'm going to say name ident type. Type. Type ident instance. I guess that will work. VM object. To define this, which this is an instance of type, so I'll have to go in after the fact. No. This would be the result of if you took the ident type instance and called it, therefore constructing an instance of an ident variant. Means it would just be an ident. So this type kind object well, no, I am trying to define the definition of type kind right now, aren't I? Which, honestly, I don't know if I need to do that right now. Yeah, let's do this. So to define a type at its most simplest level, let's focus on not defining the type kind, let's not focus on defining the definitions of types. Instead, we need to focus on just defining our types, and then we can define the types of the types later. I sound like I'm going insane, and it's because I kind of am. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to say let type kind type this is an enum definition. Which has a different definition. Can you see why it's been so hard for me to get through this part of the coding process? Because every time I sit down to do it, I just go in circles forever trying to go, what am I doing? Ah! You know? They're just like having no clue what I'm doing. Okay, so we have our type kind enum def that defines this structure right here. Defines. We're not actually going to fill it out yet until we need to. There's just going to be a placeholder for that when you create a variant of type kind. So now we just need to go through and for every single one of these basic types. So first we're going to say let nothing type equal store. Not even that. So we do want to register an object so that we can do VM object for that. Store, and then do we need to find a type? Nope, this is just object for now. I didn't even define type. Type will be a self-defining type. An object of type. So let's just do type here, and then this is going to be a placeholder for that. For whenever I get around to it. So this is an object. I'm just gonna go with type for now because it's fine. Then inside of type, we have the kind of type that it is. Then we also have the traits. Which I will care about at a later date. Hello, how's it going, AJ? This doesn't need any type, and we can just do that. It's like so. I wonder if I could upgrade the VM object macro so that I could do recursive objects. That'd be pretty nice if I could do that. See what I'm working on? We are working on... This is what I do to relax. We're working on a dynamically typed coding language that runs at a compile time to produce code that we then compile into actual code. This is a side project of mine. I want to make a game engine in a custom language, and no, I am not Jonathan Blow. So then we need to set the kind of this, and then this... The kind of this needs to be store variants, and then register a variant. Yeah. To be very proficient in Unity. It doesn't really go away, but Unity is a beast. Seeing how I define variant here. Probably do want to create a helper for this. Or do I? No, I kind of do. But what would the helper look like? I'm just gonna say new, and this will return variant. We're gonna do tag and then toString on the tag, or as ref string there, and then value. Actually, value can be nothing, so we'll just do value. Waiting for me because it worked this accent. Oof. Yeah, that's not fun. Let's just say to do add station of tag using type. Oh, if I did this, I'd have to pass in the store as well, and that's a whole thing. Maybe we'll do a macro for it in the future, but for now it's just going to be kind of a pain. register a variant. The tag of this variant is going to be nothing type kind tag. This is going to be a store register ident thing. Call that nothing ident like that. I want to add that to the standard library. I might want to add that to the standard library. Not sure about it. Anyway, let's add in the structure fields. Tag is ident. The type is type of this variant. So the name I guess I haven't defined enum type yet, but it is essentially going to be that structure there of having a name and then variants. Any case, value, nothing. Store object. Variant ID store object is not satisfied. Oh, right. That's because in my macro, we're not. It's in fields? I think it's a ref ID mapping here? Yeah. Variant ID, variant ID, variant ID. There we go. And now the macro should be able to properly handle. The variants are a native type of the runtime. Might take a hot minute for it to update. Sort object from T. What's going on here? Required for allocation value to implement from variant. Oh, okay. Go. So now variant should be fully implemented. We'll see. No. Yeah, and now it's happy. Nice. Create an object of type kind is the nothing type kind, which is a variant. Type kind enum def, specifically the nothing ident variant of the nothing type kind, with no particular definition because it doesn't need one. Is that all I have set? Is that all I need to do to register these for now? I believe so. So from here to here is how I'm currently going to be defining types. And then at some point I'll need to flesh out type kind, enum def, and nothing ident, and all that sort of stuff. But since I have no functions that operate directly on types that I'm exposing to the runtime, we don't actually need to care about that yet, since we're not actually doing all the fancy macro manipulation stuff I created the language to be able to do in the first place. Need more water. I'm going to do the same exact thing multiple times. Or register ident. Oh, I actually don't need to do that. I just need to do type kind enum def, same as that. Bool ident, bool is nothing. Did I capitalize bool in my docs? Yes, I did. So we're doing capital bool. Now we just need to do that again. Int type will be int type kind and int type traits. Def ident value nothing. Type traits. We actually want this to be bool type, int type traits. Go. Do it again, but for float. And for object, then do I want anything in the value? For object specifically, no, actually. I was not cooking with an object type. For objects, there's nothing in common between objects except for that they're objects. Could add new extra stuff to the object eventually, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I do get that window AC unit. It is definitely way too hot in here. Making it hard to think. It's like it's 87. 2 degrees in here. It's getting hotter since I opened the window. Maybe it's just Okay, picking it up made it go to 88. I've been done enough interesting stuff to stop the stream though and cool off. I need to get stuff done. Did I move? Yes, I did. Then we have ident type traits. No. I want to let ident type equal made much progress in the project. I've been stalled for a really long time on the type system, just because it's such a recursive thing. Because I'm defining a type system for a dynamically typed language using the same dynamic types of that dynamically typed language, because I want to be able to use reflection to create more types in the dynamically typed language. So I keep mentally short-circuiting myself whenever I try to actually design the types for this thing, because I don't want to define the types in Rust, because then I can't use them in the virtual machine. But defining the types in the thing, and now I have to define the types and have the types define themselves. It's like the whole Ouroboros thing. So I've made progress in that we have good error messages now. And that's about it. Once I get through all the type stuff, I'm going to be flying. I'm going to be moving so fast once I get types actually handled. Because once I have types handled, I can do a lot of other really cool stuff. But I need to get types handled first. I need to be able to have a simple way to check the arguments of a function and make sure those arguments are handled correctly. You know? I didn't. But the good thing is, I've settled on a form of the type system that I'm happy enough with to move forward with. So I'm just going to move forward with it. Man, is it a pain. Okay, no, a native array type is something that I need to have. Actually, for the moment, no, I don't need to define that an array is of a particular type. I would like to be able to do that. I don't need to at the moment. I want to define that array type. No. I think that's what I'll do. We'll have it so that array, definition of array type, if I just put array somewhere, then this type, the value of the variant, the ident type kind in there, Ooh. Would I be able to do that? Maybe. I just had an idea for my view macro system. Is that I could theoretically make a I could theoretically make it so that when you define functions on one of these object views, then it would turn, instead, it would turn into either, it would expect either an intrinsic ID or an object, or just some callable thing. Then you would just, it'd give you the signature to call that. Because currently, it's an absolute pain to call things from Rust. But I'm really excited to get this entire thing to the point where, like, just, it's ready. And I can start bootstrapping stuff and writing the language to actually be able to write the language to write the language. It's not bootstrappable yet. Once it is bootstrappable, writing all of this will be a lot easier. Maybe I need to create a base standard library view and then, like, gradually bootstrap it over time. It's array type find. This needs to be array ident. This needs to be ident. Yeah. Array ident type traits. No. Array traits. The Matrix movies. The original three have recently been made part of the YouTube's official free movies category. Which has to refresh my memory on. Only watched the first one. I liked it. It's interesting though, because I didn't watch it until I was pretty old. So it was like I expected it to be a lot more than it was, to be honest. Like, the visuals were really cool. But like, I don't know. I'm not gonna say more than that, because I don't have that thought more developed than that. I was thoroughly whelmed by The Matrix. I can actually go type for this. Type. Find here needs to be array type find. Rates is array type rates. First one is pretty good. Taking Discord on the side there. One of my friends has 3 power supplies attached to his PC because 2 of them aren't working. Apparently he's actually taking the time to fix it right now, which is good. That man has so many PC problems, and I have no clue how. Okay, the string type. This needs to be of type object. Do I want to differentiate intrinsics between functions and intrinsics? I don't think I want to, actually. No, he tried installing Linux, and then it didn't work for him. So he's back to Windows. Okay, find. This needs to be a string type kind. String type kind, and then this is actually going to be. So I don't think I'm going to differentiate between functions and intrinsic functions. They're just the same thing. Because I don't think I'm going to do any weird stuff like being able to iterate over a function. And like, you know, the sort of Lisp, your functions are the data sort of deal. I'm not going to do that. Thought about doing that. I think it's really cool to do that. I don't think I'm going to do it. I'm going to do entirely like value-based emitting of things, which means I could have done this in any other language, but having a custom syntax makes it a lot easier, and a custom virtual machine means I can make it work however I want to, because the languages that I would be thinking about doing this in are like TypeScript and Lua. Don't like JavaScript. Kind of hate JavaScript, and Lua has a 1-based arrays, and I'd be emitting to languages that have 0-based arrays. So that's like, okay, now my code that touches the actual thing now has different conventions than the code I'm emitting, and no, No, not doing that. Fuck that. No. We're just making our own shittier JavaScript with the Rust style syntax. Okay, so our string type bind. Be a really good way to get off my one errors. That's what I'm saying. There's just, we can't use Lua because it's one-based indexes. Otherwise, it might be perfect for this. Maybe. I don't know. So we now need. We're just gonna grab one of these. String type traits. I don't think I'm gonna do this thing here. Your types. Now, after we have array type. Oh, bro. Do I need a variant type? I might need a variant type. The variant? How would a variant type work? That's how we'll do it. Okay. Underneath the object, we'll say... So there's enum type? I don't think we have enum type. Because the only... I mean, yes, we have the enum type, which is an object. So that the thing defining an enum is an object. So at runtime, the only thing we have are enum variants. So then here we can have a enum value, which is I guess I can just say type here, and that no, because that type would be an enum type. Maybe do I want to differentiate enum types from types? I might want to. Hello Nadix, how's it going? Welcome to the Rust stream. We're using Rust to make a new language that I want to make a game engine in. So, to bake a pie, first we must invent the universe. That's the theme of what we're doing right now. So I think I do eventually put extra structure there that defines what the object is. Okay, we can just say this is of enum, and then have a reference to the enum type there. Brainfuck, I don't want it. I mean, okay, it's probably not going to be brainfuck. One thing watching those movies made clear is how much of a I-33T hacker against the system plot it was. any favorite movies from that genre, if any. I'm not really familiar with that genre, so I'm not quite sure what other things fall into that zone. Make a rusted brainfuck compiler? That'd be super easy. I wouldn't even have to make a compiler. It would just be an interpreter. It'd be so easy. We could do it in one stream. That'd be a fun stream. Hacker programming is a superhero type of movie? Tron. Straight up Tron. You couldn't tell from like the Tron suit, or Tron cloak I used to wear in all my videos. But no, Tron is definitely one of my like larger inspirations for the type of like, I don't know, dev experience I want to have in the future. Though it doesn't really show a lot of the mechanics, it's more of a vibe. No, not a brainfuck interpreter in Rust. A Rust compiler that compiles to brainfuck. So you're saying I have Rust as the language and then the output is brainfuck? Or a Rust compiler that outputs to brainfuck. That this could be any language. Like, what are we talking about here? So I guess I did kind of. So here's my object type here. Let's organize these in the order of the thing. So object enum array. You just said yes. I don't know which one you're saying yes to. Did I miss the... Yeah, I did. Miss this whole blob above this. And then we'll do that. Then we'll have two. Say enum item here. Enum. Why was this Holy See tutorial when? It'd be so fun. So the idea of the language I'm writing right now is unironically to compile to other coding languages. Like, that's its entire purpose, is it's a really fancy macro system. So, theoretically, it's not out of scope of the project to make emitters for fucking Holy See or brainfuck. I could do that. Never mind. Friend with 3 power supplies connected to their PC decided not to actually fix it right now. The Tron dev experience idea behind your use of VR chat sometimes. Also, how come you haven't done so in a while? Oh, you mean like when I use VR chat as the camera? Main reason I haven't done it is I don't have a good, like, I can screen replacement in a like a Quest 3, but it's not a fun experience. And then I like doing it in a Quest Pro, even though it's a worse experience than a Quest 3, because it actually gave me eye tracking, and that was really nice. I think I'm gonna wait like a couple months until I can use a theoretical better headset that might be releasing sometime, theoretically. And then we'll go back to deving actually in VR. But yes, what I would absolutely love at some point is if I can get an engine to the point where I can just be sitting in the game that I'm developing and then just have like hot reloads, still sitting in the coding environment. Maybe we can set up a stream camera so I can literally show the things I'm doing as I'm doing them. And then that would that's how I want to make things. I want to be in the thing as I make it, more so Resonite style. But yeah, trying not to break NDA challenge. I don't have any information that I could spill. What are you trying to imply? Nobody knows when the Steam frame's gonna come out. You like the third Tron movie? The soundtrack was nearly as good as the Daft Punk soundtrack. There was moments that were interesting ideas, but it didn't have the same tone as the second Tron movie. The second Tron movie is my favorite. The first one is cool from like a CGI standpoint and everything they did with it. That's what's most cool. You watch the first Tron to see really cool CGI for the time. And like interesting concepts, and it's cool seeing like how they adapted like computer concepts pretty accurately. Second Tron movie, straight up, I would describe it as a religious experience. For me, the second Tron movie is a religious experience. You get the Daft Punk soundtrack going, you have like the parallels between like stuff going, and it's just, you sit down and you're like, I could make a religion out of this. But not really. Anyways, but then I get to the third Tron movie, and it's a modern movie. It's kind of like, we're gonna go on an adventure with Jared Leto, AI Bro. And it has a little bit of like modern cringe humor in it that I'm not a fan of. Like, I could almost like Ares' character. Like, third Tron movie was close to working, but it doesn't quite hit for me. But I really like the second Tron movie a ton. Oh. Dude, I am so jealous. I really wanted to see that movie in IMAX. I wanted to see that movie in IMAX so badly. I just didn't get a chance to. Like, pretty bummed out about. For enum type. I don't think I'm ever going to do just like, I want a variant as the, no, because enums are always a variant of a specified enum. So I don't think it makes sense to define an enum type. I think we do need to define an enum type and define that. Cool thing where it was back-to-back Tron movies with Legacy and Ares afterwards. Yeah, I knew about that. I just couldn't find it anywhere near me that actually was doing that. Would have been... Oh. I did watch, when I still had an Apple Vision Pro, I did watch Tron Legacy multiple times in that headset. Like, it didn't even have 3D, but it was just... It's a very good experience. Do I need to define anything else for the moment? I don't think so. So let's add all of these to the standard library. I don't think we're gonna have type. And no, we will have type as part of the native library. We need to have hub, bool, d, hub, int, id. And then we actually need to expose nothing as a value. Ooh. I just realized. It should just be a value. I guess we can get the type of nothing, but that's going to have to be a specific variant on my type getting thing. It takes 2 arguments. Why not just do generic value? That's so stupid. Anyone can watch parties with that idea, but within VR, definitely. Definitely. My group that went to see Tron Ares was thinking about doing it, but we didn't end up doing it. I wonder if anybody had watch parties with that idea within... Oh, AVP is definitely a cool headset, but way too expensive. Yep. Unironically, I sold my AVP and used the exact same funds that I used to buy the AVP to buy a car. Now, was that a good decision? No. The car, the car was an experience. I spent about a year fixing up the car, and then drove it across here to Colorado, and it still has a little bit of issues, but it had transmission issues when I bought it. So I dropped the transmission like 3 times, I rebuilt it twice. I learned how to rebuild an automatic transmission. I did it twice. It didn't fix it because it was the valve body. It wasn't any of like the internal clutch plates or like rotary gears or anything. No, it was the $500 part that I could buy rebuilt off of eBay. Don't have to drop the transmission. You just drop the pan, swap out the valve body, and then it fixed. Car drives. I also had to, but I did a ton of other work on that car too. Like I changed out the steering rack on it. Basically, I ended up paying about as much money as it would be to just have bought a good car. And now like the airbag light is on, and it like the transmission's still slightly weird, but it's fine. Wait, where are the wires? Wire was to the transmission probably. The wires were anti-wires, because transmissions are really cool in that they're a circuit board, but instead of electricity, it's fluid, and the fluid pressure is the different voltages and stuff. It's actually really cool. I really enjoyed it, but at the end of the day, like, I wanted a car that worked, and that's eventually what I got. But now I just use it to drive to the grocery store and back, because I'm a little bit scared to do anything else with it. Then again, it got all the way from Florida to Colorado without any issues whatsoever, so the car might be fine. It's not. The airbag light is on. The airbags might just not work. Probably for the best of current gas prices. Yeah. Yeah. But, you know, I want to go out and do things. Like, I've been a little bit too much of a VR dev, and not been leaving the house, but it's okay. Me and my roommates have been working on stuff to do and whatnot. Started going rock climbing. Fingers very sore. Well, not fingers. Forearms very sore. Oh, so original. So original. Programmer does rock climbing. Programmer has rock climbing shoes that they barely ever use. Stuff. But no. Started going rock climbing, planning to go camping this weekend, so that will be fun. Hopefully get back out into nature, because I actually really like nature. I know it's kind of weird that, you know, like, VR dev, very committed VR dev, that is very good at what he does, and I'm just like, I want to go out in the woods and not do anything VR for a little bit here. But, yeah, like, I got Eagle Scout at, like, 14 and all of that, so, like, I could theoretically disappear into the woods and, like, survive. I used to be touching grass, not as much anymore. I want to go back to touching grass. much a photography person. I would build structures in the wild, but yeah. Not much of a photography person. I actually much prefer when I'm out in nature to not have a camera. Like, occasionally, like, I'll take a picture, like, as a reference for game design or whatever. But for the most part, it's like, if I'm out of the house, not on VR, it's like, I'm, like, fully online, or I'm fully out. Like, if I'm going to hike, there's no phone. There's no music. Just walking in nature with nothing else, and that's the way I want it to. I don't get bored just doing that. It's very zen-like. You feel so much better after going on a good hike. Did I define Boolean twice? I did not define Boolean twice. I did define string ident twice. Weird thing about liking to learn in general. Viewership habits including both primitive tech and highly advanced tech. This is true. It's all technology. I don't need a standard library accessible definition of enum for now. Maybe if I have like a generic set of library functions to deal with enums, I'll need to throw that in there. For now, well, if enum will be one of the variants, and we will have enum types. But for now, I don't know. I mean, with a dedicated camera, not an online thing or extraction thing. It's just more meditative. It makes you see things differently. I still feel like I would prefer not to be using a camera, because if I'm holding a camera, some part of me is thinking like, how will people react when they see this? And that's when I'm in nature, I want to be out. Like, I want to be in the moment, not thinking about. If I can, I don't want to be thinking about the future and what people think of me and all that. Right. See you around, Natix. Thanks for stopping in. Hello, how's it going? So weird. I forget. Every single time I stream, I forget that, like, I'm on the side of, like, the Veil Discord showing up as streaming right now. I think all sorts of Veil people popping in. Do I have all my types defined? I think I might have all of my types defined. Yeah. Let's see. Now that I have all of that defined, right. That's what we need to do next. Go up here and make sure all of these are making it into the standard library structure here. Costco. Done playing a scrim. How'd it go? Here we go. Type. We also need to get Boolean here. is the removal type. Loot. Right. We need to add this here, but float. And here as well. Eventually I'll need to define every single one of the utility functions for all of these. But not quite yet. Point, ident. Wait. Exist? That's good. Pick string. I do need array here. Well, maybe I do need enum here. So that I can define the actual definition of an enum. But this is more going to be a... This is going to be a function. Enum is going to be simply a function. Maybe an object at a later day, but for now just a function. Going to be the enum constructor, and this is going to have this definition in here. Context. Error? Oh wait, this is... There we go. Context. Error, then how do I define these? Reason, and then a span. There we go, just say not implemented. Then here for enum, we'll just pass that function in. Just like so, and then array is going to be array type, which I believe I did define. I did. Do I need to define buffer? Not necessarily. No, don't need to define buffer. Now, how do these types, which I've just defined basically all of the ones that I'm working with right now, how are these going to make it easier to create the virtual machine? Because that's what we need to do next. So we need a way for the context here to verify arguments. Means we need to define a function signature. Now, do we define the function signature in Rust or in code? Now, there will definitely be a moment where you can ask for aspects of the function signature in the program, but you shouldn't be able to edit the aspects of the function in the program. About the function signature. I mean, it's going to have to exist in the code anyways, so I might as well define it as part of the standard library. In the same way that ranges and spans I defined as part of the virtual machine, just because they make it a lot easier to work with it. Yeah, okay. So function signature. Function signature. What sort of things do you have in a function signature? You definitely have parameters. The parameters are an array. Or they're an object. I think for the sake of this, though, parameters are an array. Do I have the name as part of the function signature? And when I make callable, like stuff that emits code, are those functions or are those callable? Well, I mean, callable with context. Callable objects. In any case, we need a way to tell the virtual machine what is the signature of this function. I don't think I want to inherently do that in the virtual machine because it doesn't make things easier for me. So let's look at where we define functions instead in our parser. Yeah, that works. Here's our IR function. Not using the signature span anywhere. So I have the expression, I have my parameters, which currently are only ident IDs. But here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna say pub we're gonna have this, which is allow extra params, and this is gonna be a bool. And if we allow extra parameters, we'll get extra parameters occasionally. And then here we'll have ident ID with an option. I'll say value. And if we set anything other than a none value, none values will act as wildcards. And I really don't like optional parameters, so we're not going to allow them. Maybe we should allow them. I'm just trying to think how we do this, because I don't like that extra parameters as of now would just show up as regular variables inside my functions, when preferably what we have is a value that they're being put into. this is what we'll do for now. Hello. Yeah, I like this. Okay, let's see where we... Oh, joy. We redo this now. Let's see, ident ID... ID... We'll do reference kind ident, and then network. There we go. Then in here as well, we're gonna do additional param, singular. I'm doing good. How about yourself? We're just trying to get a type system working for this compiled time language. Not found for reference ident ID. Okay, so we need to do this. And there, our garbage collection will. Garbage collector will actually be happy. So let's find the parser somewhere up here, I guess. There we go. In the function, in parsing the function, we now need to think about additional params. None. Okay, here. gonna say if let some type or if self next if expected. Okay. Right now we're working on, it's a little bit hard to explain. It's a compile time language that emits other code. So the idea is it's kind of just a really fancy macro system, but I'm hoping that it can handle the being a macro system, being a build system, and being a templating system, and I guess to some extent a packaging system for my next project. So basically, we write code, and then that code gets interpreted, we have a script that runs, and then the output is C that gets compiled. And the script also compiles the C for me. But the easiest way to think about it is my language is getting turned into C or some other language, but it's a lot nicer experience than doing that. But it also can do a lot of other stuff, like runtime reflection. Not runtime reflection, like compile time reflection and whatnot. Yeah. Well, exact token kind, token, find, colon? Yeah. I'm gonna say param type is equal to this, else none. I guess I could do then statements here, but then I wouldn't be able to do... How long have I been coding? Since it was 7 or 8. I'm 23 now, so it's been a hot minute. Okay, so here we want to say some self-expect. Actually, we just want to parse an expression here, don't we? Looks like that. There we go, and now we can say params push, param ID, and then param type. Argument has type item ID option RC expression. Causes the params to have type. Right, okay. This makes me feel better about the route I took, which is that the function definition actually does need to be different. Option RC expression. It hasn't been evaluated yet. So we'll actually create the signature when we actually create the function. Thank you. The music is linked in, or the creator of the music is one of the links underneath the stream. This one is just WhiteBatAudio. Which I like. I've been using it for years. Walk strong. An option. Okay. Here we go. I need to show my YouTube chat too. There we go. Okay, so now when we instantiate the function, that's when it grabs its types and creates its signature. And also, I might want to do this for intrinsic functions as well. Maybe. It's a lot of work that I don't need to do at precisely this moment, but it would make it a lot. It would make debug messages prettier, that's for sure. Or would it? It would make grabbing the type of an intrinsic easier. Intrinsics, I'm gonna say this. Intrinsics are in charge of checking their own signatures because they're allowed to do whatever they want to with their arguments. I'm gonna make that decision right now because it can make the intrinsics weirder. It will make them weirder. But it's fine. This also means that arguments kinds when we want every value to have a span. So what was just in my brain isn't viable. I guess I can grab the span of an expression even after evaluating it, so I can just do that for function arguments. Yeah. Hello. I have been good. All is mostly well. Doing pretty good. Okay, so now we need to make it so that when we allocate a function, so in here functions, IR function, ooh, I'm just storing the IR function. I'm not actually evaluating it. I should evaluate it at the time and grab its signature. Is this the VR OS you're working on before? No, this is tangentially related. This is just a hobby project of mine. It's like a scripting language I want to use to write a game engine at some point. Basically, a very advanced macro system, works as the build system, templating system, all of that stuff. But allowing me to work with C, hopefully a lot more ergonomically than I could with Rust, because Rust is not ergonomic to work with at all for C-related things. Yeah. I have done a good number of game engines. Or attempts at game engines. Never gotten to them to the game point. Alright, what am I thinking of? Right. We register a function. This function needs a signature. But that's the other thing. It's at the point of definition that I actually define functions. Or is that the call? Do I define the signature? Do I define this? No. Yes. No. So the problem right now is I'm treating functions the same way that I treat them if I'm writing an actual compiler, which is just you omit a function actually in a compiler you would have the call signature at every call, and the function is just a pointer to that. But I don't want to be checking the types I'm putting into the function signature at the point where I'm calling it, only doing it What are my other hobbies? Mostly coding. But I have been getting back into rock climbing. Might go camping soon. No, planning on going camping soon. And yeah, some various other things. Those are the main ones. This will not do. I'd have to define allocation function as a different concept. It's fun. I guess you would have to include working on cars on a hobby, but I already got the car to make the trip I wanted it to. So I haven't been working on it too much, but I pulled the engine once and dropped the transmission a couple times. Trying to get that all working. Okay, so here's the problem with this. A function is a list of expressions, and then we evaluate those expressions. But the function's signature is a value, and that value gets created at a point in time. So I either need to nest functions these functions come into existence at a point in time. But up until that point in time, they only exist. The expressions that they're called on never change, so there's no point in finding it multiple times. But the signature does need to be stored alongside the function. Fuck am I supposed to do? At the moment, functions are just another object in the virtual machine. They get created when they're parsed, but they're not evaluated when they're parsed, because it's a distinct step. Unless the way to solve this might be to combine the parsing and the evaluation steps into one. Is there Steam frame support for Brain? No, because Brain does not exist. There is not Brain support for Brain at the moment. Nor am I working on Brain Engine right now. This is Pillar, the language that I somehow keeps getting weirdly more complicated. I might have to convert it so that it runs lines of code line by line, more like an interpreter. More like an interpreter than it already is. Like, just straight up token stream it. Of course, evaluate entire expressions before running them, but the fact that I have the functions here isn't working at the moment. I need to have a way to... The thing is, it still runs into the same issue of I don't want copies of function source code floating around virtual machine. So maybe then function body becomes a type or expression. Wait. Wait a second. I could do that. I could do that. Instead of functions, I could have expressions be individual objects in the virtual machine, and then a function instance could be a paired signature with the expression, root expression, because if I look at the definition for function right here, look at that, it's an expression. So a function instance could be an expression paired with a value parameters. And then when I'm instantiating a function as part of a different expression, it could instead have an expression ID, which would just be a different expression within the virtual machine. And that would solve the recursive continually spawning new expressions problem that I'm worried about here. Memory efficiency. I could okay. Oh, it's so cursed. Okay. So cursed. Okay. We go... Is this caps lock? It is caps lock. We go to... Okay. We do still have functions as a type. But... we also have expressions as a type. This is going to be an expression that is referenced by EXPR ID. Now, our definition for functions, and these truly will be like function values that also, this is how I do closures. Because I wasn't able to figure out how to do closures before. Or like, yeah. So these aren't functions, they're closures. Now, do I want closures to be a native type So a closure is the proper term for a unnamed function that when you create that function, it can capture values from its environment. So in C++ it's called a lambda. In everything else it's called a closure, basically. A lot of times they're called lambda functions. Or anonymous functions is another name for them, but an anonymous function doesn't explicitly have the ability to capture variables. It's just a function without like a human readable name. Whereas closures are anonymous functions that can capture variables from their environment. Okay, closures. Do I have closures be native objects? Because I wasn't planning on them being native objects. Yeah, it's more of a functional programming term. GC type store IR function. Don't need any IR function anymore. This is what I would do. Pub. This does break the way that I was doing stack traces. No, it doesn't. It's call sites. It does break the names of those, which I can fix. Closure. So this needs captured variables, along with the names that I want to give those captured variables. This is going to be a vector, ident value, which I'm not going to be using yet. Body is an expression. This is our runnable code in there. And then we'll have an object reference to the signature. I'll use function ID for closures for the moment. But in the parser, that doesn't make sense. How long have I been working on this project? Let's say roughly about 2 months, probably. 2 or 3 months. Maybe longer if you count other attempts at it. Or like coding languages in general, like 5 years. How long are you? Pretty early, I would say. Like, I was able to get a Hello World, but the Hello World had a lot of cut corners. Like, a lot of cut corners. But if you run... Where did I put it? Did I put it in build or emit or... Where did I put it? Yeah. But like the last version of the program actually was able to emit a hello world. I can just run hello world exe hello world, and that was created by a script run by this VM. So yeah. It's funny that I'm back to closures. The raw expressions is a new one though. Alright. I'm getting pretty hungry here, and I'm a little bit at a dead end of, like, the next step here is going to take a lot of effort. So I think I'm going to sign off for now. I made a lot of good progress. But yeah. I think we're good to go. I will see you guys next time. Hopefully next time I will have put in like a lot more time on getting all the type stuff done, so we can focus on the fun stuff of just adding features to the language, get it running, get it actually emitting stuff. Yeah. And then, yeah. See you guys next time.